in what started as an innocent night of fun, quickly escalated into a full-blown nightmare beyond anyone's wildest imagination. And in less than 24 hours, the bodies of two young women, both who knew each other very well, were found dumped outside separate hospitals and both devastated by the same cocktail of lethal drugs. Now, at first glance, some people may believe that this was merely a tragic accident. However, when investigators realized that both of these victims were dumped outside of the hospitals by masked men who drove a car without license plates, well, their doubts and suspicions understandably grew. The deeper investigators looked into these masked men, the more clues they found, with all of them leading to a self-proclaimed movie producer who regularly partied with the Hollywood elite. And even more alarming, as this man's dark story unraveled and his predatory past came into the spotlight, it left many wondering how many more victims lay hidden in the shadows of LA's glamorous nightlife. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, folks, and welcome back to Coffeehouse Crime. My name is Adrian, and today we're looking at the case of Christy Giles and Marcella Cabrales Azola. Sadly, both of these women would lose their lives in the most tragic and unexpected of ways. Not only that, but it revealed the dark underbelly of LA. By the way, if you like true crime, strange or dark stories, or simply like to caffeinate while you investigate, then you're definitely in the right place. Please do consider subscribing, as I post up to 2 videos a week here. And now, with that said, please grab yourself a coffee, pull up a seat, and get ready for the deep dive. This is the case of Christy Giles and Marcella Cabrales Azola. Welcome to Los Angeles, folks. The city of stars, sun, and seriously bad traffic. But hey, that's just part of the adventure, right? With a huge population of nearly 4 million people, LA is the largest city in California and the second largest in the United States, right behind New York. This sprawling metropolis is the heartbeat of the entertainment industry, home to Hollywood, and, of course, the iconic Chinese theater. But beyond the glitz and glamour, LA boasts a rich history, having been founded in 1781 by Spanish settlers. Here's a fun fact, but did you know that the city became part of the US in 1850, where, after the Mexican-American War, Los Angeles and the rest of California were purchased as part of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. LA's Mediterranean climate makes it a year-round destination for sun-seekers, and locals will insist that anything below 15 degrees Celsius or 60 Fahrenheit is considered freezing. So, what precisely is there to do in LA? Now, I'm sure that some of you will claim sweet F all, whereas others will say that you need more than a month merely to scratch the surface. Travel to the iconic Hollywood Hills for breathtaking views of the city skyline and the world-famous Hollywood sign. And if you're looking to get a taste of LA culture, then check out the vibrant arts district, where galleries and murals blend with some of the finest coffee shops. Alternatively, you can visit the LA County Museum of Art, known for its urban light installation. Sports fans can catch a Lakers or a Dodgers game, and beach lovers will want to cruise along the Pacific Coast Highway to hit spots like Malibu Beach or the Santa Monica Pier. And of course, we cannot forget about the food, folks. Whether you're indulging in a Korean barbecue feast, inhaling a pastrami sandwich, or hunting for the best street tacos in town, LA has something for everyone. However, in November of 2021, the city was served a dish best left off the table. That was the moment when a chilling series of events would slowly reveal themselves, casting a morbid shadow over the bright lights of Los Angeles. A shadow that stretched far beyond the city and even country. November the 13th, 2021 began like any other day. That was until the evening rolled around. It was around 5 p.m. that 2 masked men in an untagged Toyota Prius drove up to Southern California Hospital, found in Culver City, which was kind of strange because that car had no license plates. However, it was what they did next that was the real head-turner. After pulling up to one of the entrances of the hospital, they then pulled out the unconscious body of a 24-year-old woman before then dumping her on the side of the pathway and speeding off into the distance. But before running away, the 2 claimed that apparently they had found her on the side of the road and were merely helping out as good Samaritans. However, their statement immediately raised red flags. Not only did they claim that they had no time to wait around or provide any information about themselves, but sadly, this woman would soon pass away after arriving. And if that wasn't strange enough already, the same thing would happen again only a few hours later, when the same two men pulled up at another hospital with another woman. Now, this time, it was at the Kaiser Permanente hospital found in West LA, and those two men pulled out the body of a 26-year-old woman who was alive, but only barely. Despite best efforts from medical staff, she remained in critical condition and eventually was declared brain dead. And now, all of a sudden, those two masked men were looking mighty suspicious. Now, I know you're curious, so I may as well ask the question for you. Who were these two women? How did they end up in such a dire situation? And what about their drivers? So, beginning with our first victim, Christy Giles was 24 years old at the time this story took place. She was a vibrant spirit filled with adventure, passion, and purpose. Born on November 4th, 1997, in Birmingham, Alabama, Christy grew up in a tight-knit family in the small town of Mount Olive. From a very young age, Christy exhibited boundless energy and a natural competitive streak, therefore excelling in several sports, including soccer and track. Her parents recalled her fearlessness, recalling a memorable moment when she played on the boys' soccer team, displaying her fierce and determined nature. To match her beauty and athletic talent, she also had a very magnetic presence. In her teenage years, she entered the world of pageantry, where she would go on to win the title of Junior Miss Gardendale Magnolia Festival, and was even the first runner-up at Miss Alabama Teen USA. However, it was at the age of 14 when her modeling career truly began to take shape. After attending a casting call, Christy's potential was immediately recognized, receiving callbacks from 11 modeling agencies in the very same day. Faced with a life-changing decision between pursuing soccer or going for modeling instead, she chose the latter. She opted to sign with Wilhelmina Models, setting her on a path that would take her around the globe. By the young age of 16, Christy had not only left school but also traveled internationally, immersing herself in the world of fashion and in big cities like Miami and London. Eventually, she was lucky enough to call Los Angeles her second home. And it was in LA where she met Jan Cilliers, a visual effects artist and photographer. In the year 2019, and after a whirlwind romance, the couple eloped at the Burning Man Festival, an unconventional yet rather fitting celebration of their love. The two complemented each other in both work and life, often collaborating on photography projects where Christy's striking presence brought his visuals to life. Just one look at her Instagram showcases her zest for life. Her posts often reflected her love for fashion, travel, and time spent with friends and family. More than just a model, she was seen as a free-spirited soul who embraced every moment. Her now husband Jan described her as deeply loving, recounting their quiet moments together cooking in the kitchen, playing with their cats, and traveling around the world. You see, Christy had big dreams for her future, one who she would ambitiously share with her closest friends. She would regularly speak of expanding her career in modeling and also building a family with Jan. You could also tell that she really wanted kids, and that was the headspace she was in, to love and to nurture. It is a tragedy that she would never be able to do such a thing, as sadly, she would lose her life before she could provide one to the world. As for our second unfortunate victim, Hilda Marcella Cabrales Arzola, who went by the name Marcella, was a talented and ambitious woman who was 26 years old when this story took place. Born on November 29th, 1994 in Mexico, she was raised in a supportive family that nurtured her love for creativity and architecture. Her father, Luis Cabrales Rivera, and her mother, Dr. Hilda Marcella Arzola Plasencia, both described her as a bright and driven individual. Even from a young age, Marcella had her eyes set on making a difference in the world. Now, Marcella was very keen to be an architect, and she pursued this passion by studying architecture at the prestigious Universidad de Monterrey in Mexico. During her studies, she gained a reputation for her intelligence, creativity, and dedication to the craft. left. And after graduating, her ambitions would push her to take on an even greater challenge. By the year 2021, she made the bold decision to move to LA to further her career in architecture and design. Los Angeles was the perfect environment for her to grow both professionally and personally. It was during her time in LA that she made great strides in her career, working on various architectural projects and networking like none other. She was enthusiastic about her future and had big dreams of becoming a leading figure in her field. Naturally, she would frequently connect with other creatives, and that was how she crossed paths with Christy Giles in 2021. The two of them eventually became great friends, or at least good enough that coffee breaks turned into nights out together, which of course leads all of us to November the 12th, 2021. Looking to relax and see what the city had to offer, both women, along with several other friends, planned a night out in the city. Now, as far as I know, there was nothing special about this evening. Christy and Marcella, along with several other friends, decided to go out and see what the city had to offer. After attending an art exhibition, Christy, Marcella, along with a third friend, decided to go to a warehouse party found in East LA. The atmosphere was buzzing, with all women captured in a video dancing in the VIP section. At this point, the third friend left the party early, leaving Christy and Marcella to continue without her. It was soon after that Christy and Marcella would meet three men, this including the fabled David Pierce, a self-proclaimed Hollywood producer, along with cinematographer Michael Ansbach and actor Brant Osborne. David invited them all to an after-party at his apartment found in the Hollywood Hills. And so, feeling adventurous, Christy and Marcella accepted his invitation and left the warehouse party with them. But after arriving at his apartment, they realized that David had not fully told the truth about this after-party. That is because, well, nobody else was there. It was only Christy, Marcella, and the three other men. Now, what happened next still remains mostly a mystery. However, what we do know is that at 5:30 a.m., Christy texted Marcella to say, "Let's go," accompanied by a wide-eyed emoji. Marcella then responded with, "Yes, I'll call an Uber 10 minutes away." Through these two messages, it is rather clear that both women were trying to leave David's apartment quite abruptly. Now, their Uber would in fact arrive at the property. However, Marcella and Christy would never make it to the vehicle. Despite numerous attempts to get in contact with them, they never responded to the driver. And so, after 10 minutes of silence, he decided to leave. As the night progressed into the morning, Christy's husband, Jan, who was visiting family in San Francisco, woke up early to find several missed messages from his wife. Now, at first, he thought nothing of it, and he assumed that she had simply enjoyed a fun night out with friends in LA. They would often check in with each other while they were apart, and although she was at a party, her messages did initially appear normal, with nothing alarming standing out. However, as the morning stretched on without any reply from her, a gnawing feeling began to unsettle Jan. As part of their usual safety routine, both Jan and Christy would share their phone locations with each other, a simple precaution in their busy and sometimes chaotic lives in LA. But when Jan checked her location, expecting to see her either at home or near a familiar area, he was immediately alarmed. Her phone was pinging at an unfamiliar address on West Olympic Boulevard, far from any place she had mentioned going. He tried to call her, however, sadly, no dice. And that is when panic started to set in. Her silence was very unusual. Jan frantically began to retrace her steps, combing through her social media to see what he could find. And although he discovered a video that showed her and Marcella dancing in a VIP section at a warehouse party, after that, her trail vanished. As the afternoon slowly arrived, and still with no word from Christy, Jan's concern deepened, and so that is when he contacted the authorities, provided them with her last known location, and then reached out to her friends. By now, anxiety had turned into a desperate search for answers, and so Jan took to social media too, sharing the mysterious address online, and although many tips came pouring in, no one could tell him anything useful. And that is when terrible news found its way to his very own front door. It was the police, and they were there to tell him that not only had Christy been found at a hospital, but she was sadly already dead. It was at that moment that the grim truth of what actually happened hit Jan like a meteor. His beautiful, free-spirited wife had not simply passed out or temporarily vanished. She was gone for good. The overwhelming feeling of grief engulfed him in an instant, and without any time to think about it, Jan booked himself a flight back to LA. It was during his flight back home that his thoughts bounced between heart-wrenching memories and the mystery behind those final few hours. Jan just had to know two things here. Who were those men responsible? And why hadn't anyone helped his wife? Meanwhile, back in Mexico, the news that Marcella had been hospitalized struck like lightning for her family. It was an ordinary day for them until that phone call came through. Her father was notified that his daughter was critically ill and, sadly, had been intubated. The shock and confusion that followed were overwhelming, as he struggled to comprehend what had happened. His heart raced while her family made plans to fly over, with their minds gripped by fear and dread. Nothing could have prepared them for the scene they encountered after they had arrived. Marcella was almost unrecognizable and unconscious, hooked up to various machines, while her body battled the effects of multiple drug intoxications. Doctors had done everything that they could, but the prognosis was grim. As they explained Marcella's critical state, her family clung to the faint hope that she might one day recover from her state. She had always been strong and resilient after all, but unfortunately, the doctor's words were very bleak. Throughout the night, her brain had suffered extensive damage and showed no signs of activity. Marcella had been poisoned by a cocktail of drugs, including cocaine, MDMA, and many other substances, some of which they could not even determine. The family faced an agonizing wait, hovering by her bedside and praying for a miracle. They held on for days, hoping that Marcella's strength would pull her through. But as the days turned into weeks, the reality of the situation grew ever more clear. Her body, though still alive, was failing her. And that was when the family was confronted with the most excruciating decision of their lives. They had to consider taking Marcella off life support. On November the 28th, 2021, and only one day before her 27th birthday, they made the heartbreaking choice to let her go. With tears and unimaginable pain, they all said their final goodbyes to her, knowing that she would no longer be with them. And after she had passed away, in one final act of love and generosity, Marcella's organs were donated to save 9 other lives, ensuring that her legacy would live on. The grief brought on by the loss of these two young women was compounded by the brutal truth that both of their deaths had been a homicide. They had allegedly been drugged and left for dead by men who showed no concern for their well-being. And the pain of these two young women losing their lives in such a senseless and cruel way is something that would never fade. And this fueled a fight for justice from their family. As one can imagine, investigations began as soon as both women were found at the hospitals, that being on November the 13th, 2021. The actions taken by Christy's husband in the hours after she disappeared were instrumental in the initial stages of the investigation and gave police a very good head start. And after using their phone's location sharing feature to track down her last known location, the strange address in West LA was confirmed to be an apartment that belonged to David Pierce. But again, who precisely was David Pierce? Now, on the surface, David was connected with the glitz and the glamour of Hollywood. Born in the 1980s, not much is publicly known about his early life or his upbringing. However, his move to Los Angeles in pursuit of success would put him at the center of LA's nightlife, and then, consequentially, would lead him down a dark and troubling path. He built an image for himself as a, quote, Hollywood producer, and was often seen rubbing shoulders with industry insiders at exclusive parties and events. The man was very good at projecting an aura of success, one that gave him access to LA's most elite social circles, including actors, models, and influencers. However, David's glamorous persona masked a far darker reality, and that's because, beneath his supposed industry credentials, he was involved in various criminal activities. Activities including sexual assault allegations that spanned well over a decade, with some charges dating back as far as the year 2010. Along with his associates, that being cinematographer Michael Ansbach and actor Brant Osborne, he was unfortunately known to lure women to parties and then use drugs to incapacitate them, an accusation consistent with what investigators believe happened to Christy and Marcella. As the investigation unfolded, detectives would find surveillance footage showing Christy and Marcella leaving the East LA warehouse party together, accompanied by David, Michael, and Brandt. It must be noted that digital evidence was crucial in building this case. In addition to the surveillance footage, messages sent between Christy and Marcella revealed their growing discomfort at his apartment. This was also their last known location, and additional surveillance footage would also confirm this. Although not available to the public, this surveillance footage apparently captures David and his associates leaving the apartment with both women, reportedly showing the group getting into a vehicle after both of them had already been drugged. To add to all of this, additional surveillance cameras would later catch our troubling trio dropping Christy and Marcella off at separate hospitals, further implicating them in their efforts to try and conceal their identity and their involvement. The autopsy reports conducted on both women concluded that Christy had a deadly cocktail of drugs in her system, including fentanyl, cocaine, ketamine, and GHB, commonly known as the date rape drug. Marcella's toxicology report also shared some rather troubling details. It revealed a mix of cocaine, MDMA, and other identified substances. Both of their deaths were ruled as homicides, confirming investigators' suspicions that both women had not voluntarily ingested these substances. 1 month later, in December of 2021, the investigation came to a head when David, Michael, and Brandt were all arrested. But their charges would differ between the three men. Where David was arrested for charges of manslaughter, the other two were arrested for accessory to manslaughter. Throughout this time frame, it became quite clear to detectives that David had a long streak of predatory behavior. And we know this because several of his victims came forward. And while these arrests marked a rather significant milestone in the case, it was only after their arrests that more discoveries were made. Detectives currently believe that, on the night that both of these women died, David had drugged both of them up to make sexual advances. However, when they became far too unresponsive, he then panicked and tried to conceal his involvement, all while not seeking medical assistance to save their lives. And as we know, that is when Michael and Brandt removed the license plates from their car before dumping their bodies at 2 separate hospitals. But sadly, despite what we know so far, and as of the date of posting this video, the legal case surrounding their deaths is yet to entirely unfold. David Pierce faces multiple charges, that including manslaughter and several unrelated sexual assault charges. And his co-defendants, who allegedly helped him cover up the deaths, are also faced with their own charge as accessories to manslaughter. Both men have provided inconsistent stories during the investigation, and although we don't know much, Brandt does claim that Christy and Marcella willingly took the drugs with them. So I guess we at least know that David and his cronies were with the two women when all of this went down. The case has been delayed multiple times due to David pulling as many dirty tricks as he can find. This includes him changing his defense team, citing that they were not good enough to represent him. However, with this case now reaching the pre-trial phase, it is almost inevitable that this will go ahead soon. The ongoing legal battle has sadly become a second tragedy for the families, particularly for Christy's husband and Marcella's father. That is because throughout their many statements, legal procedures, and pleas for support, they have had to repeatedly relive their deaths in their minds. But all this has done is ramp up their determination to see those responsible finally held accountable. And much like the rest of those who know Christy and Marcella, they cannot wait to see them in the courtroom. Details aside, this case shines a harsh light on the dangers found in LA. David Pierce and his alleged crimes are the hallmarks of the predatory behavior found among powerful men within the city's elite social circles. And it serves as a stark reminder of how some exploit their influence to bend the rules around them. As the wheels of justice slowly move forward in this case, we can only hope that this story will expose the broader issues of sexual violence and exploitation found in the entertainment industry. And if these men truly are guilty, then by finding a resolution and holding them accountable, the family will finally have the closure that they so desperately deserve. As always, folks, I'll let you know of any updates to this case in one way or another, either through a pinned comment down below or in a separate updates video, which I tend to do every now and again. To me, it seems quite obvious that David is to blame here, but of course, without his trial happening yet, he remains innocent until proven guilty. But saying that, what are your thoughts on this case? Do you think that David really is to blame here, or do you think there is more at play? Please share your thoughts in the comments down below. So I'm gonna wrap this video up here today, folks, but as you can see, I'm now back in the coffee house. And not only have I moved into my new place, but Nero is once again back by my side. I'll leave a couple video clips here for you to look at, but basically, Nero has finished his 30 days in quarantine after moving to Australia. And let me tell you, he was so happy to have a place of his own again. Anyway, with things now returning back to normal for me, I should be posting up to 2 videos a week again. And thank you so much for your patience throughout this journey. If you'd like to support me, Nero, and the channel, then check out my Patreon here, or alternatively, check out my social media here. And by the way, I like to post lots of videos and pictures of Nero on Instagram, so that's probably your best bet. Anyway folks, thank you so much for watching today, thank you for your patience, and I'll see you again very soon for another video. Until that moment arrives though, remember to look after yourself, look after each other, and of course, as always, stay safe. Thank you, and goodbye.